I've always had a making practice. So I can remember even as a girl, I had the easel and the desk. And the desk got worn out at the end of the day. As a practice, much of this, like easel or whatever you want to call it, that part of my studio practice takes place as field work. So I'm going out, I'm experiencing, I'm doing field work at the batch company, I'm making glass, and I write about it. A lot is happening like outside of these walls in one way, shape, or form, and it's connected to making. And then the other part of the practice is the actual writing. So in the field, I'm writing field notes, either by hand or typing. And then I come back and I start pulling stuff off my shelves that I think is related. And I start interweaving theory and practice. Writing is like, by which I mean like handwriting, all these 0.25 high-tech C micro pens. I write by hand. So I think about like typing as possibilities, like sketching. And then I go through and I start doing the weaving work and the connecting work by hand. If I could have saved all of my papers, which you see here in the top right-hand corner of writing Firecraft, I would have. I imagined it filling up an entire gallery space, and it would be like hinged like on a binder, but the binder would be like 20 feet long. It'd be like 20,000 pages. And then the title would just be book. A couple of key books that I wanted to talk to you about. And this was torture. I gave GEEX like a list of 100 and they're like, no, Erin, that's not okay. So I struggled and struggled and struggled. And these are the ones that came out. If I had to put books in a satchel and leave, and they were the only ones I could take, these would be the ones I would take. Simone Weil, or Weil, Gravity and Grace. She is from the early 20th century. She's essentially a philosopher, was living in France, fighting the resistance in World War II, fled to England, and then refused to eat more than those in concentration camps and died of tuberculosis at age 32 or 34, which is tragic. I constantly return to her thought. One, because it's beautiful. Two, because it is such heartfelt searching. So she was Jewish. She converted to Catholicism. She became kind of an ideological Marxist. It's none of those points of departure or conclusions that interest me as much as her method of inquiry and her desire to know. This is a person who perhaps more than anything made her life project about being open to the possibility of knowing. Clarice Lispector, Brazilian novelist, essayist, poet, her Agua Viva. These aren't like typical sociology texts, but just like the journals, I feel like it's very important to read literature and poetry that's beautiful and opens the world in ways that you can see anew. She's essentially investigating the passions, what it means to love, what relationship is. She's also investigating inequalities at the time, colonization. Her voice emerges from that type of inquiry where it's hers alone and she sings it without apology. The psychoanalysis of fire, I couldn't be where I am without this book. When I first started writing about glass blowing and I was doing that embodied knowledge piece, I was working with an ethnographer whose name is Louis Quant. And when I first presented, he's like, Erin, have you heard of Bachelard? And then lo and behold, he not only has the psychoanalysis of fire, but the flame of a candle and another entire one about the poetics of fire. He's like looking at different figures in Greek history and doing a psychoanalysis of fire in those cases. The idea of being an elemental ethnographer is fundamentally connected to Bachelard and taking it in a new direction. The selected works of Audre Lorde. These are organized by size, not importance. Audre Lorde, in this book, she has an essay that I always go back to called The Uses of the Erotic. Like in my new work, The Promiscuity of Silicon. Silicon hates to be alone. Silicon, she's always getting together with everybody, specifically oxygen and silicon dioxide. I wrote Materia Erotica almost 5 years after finishing my PhD. And it was really Lorde and another author, June Jordan, who gave me the courage to ask about love and about Eros, and with Lorde, ask about what it meant to deeply participate, as she calls it, in the erotic. As Long as Grass Grows, Dina Julio Whitaker, a Coalville indigenous feminist and environmental thinker. Paradigm shifting. When I was getting into material feminism and really trying to bridge that gap between studies of art and environmental studies, it was Dina Julio Whitaker from whom I learned the limits of a Western environmental justice approach that regards nature as resources to be conserved. This is not about conserving resources. This is not about rights to resources. That exercises the power of a Western ontology in which the human is in command over the non-human. She instead advocates not for understanding environmental justice in terms of rights, but in terms of responsibilities. Again, with that idea of respond in the responsibilities like kinship and land. And I didn't want to talk about social justice within what she calls like a normative democratic capitalist paradigm. And I would have her book in my back pocket wherever I go. Merleau-Ponty, The Visible and the Invisible. I mentioned this earlier. It's the visible and the invisible, where even his phenomenological orientation starts coming unraveled, and that boundary between the human and non-human bodies becomes blurred. It's been a valuable resource for me in a way to connect phenomenology in my early work and grow it in some sense into new materialism, into critical indigenous theory, post-colonial theory, queer phenomenology, right? The seeds of it are here. And I'm just so thankful for those fragments of later text because they affirmed that I was on the right track. Deleuze and Guattari, 1,000 Plateaus. Wow, what can I say? I love this because you can see my books are destroyed. Like 1,000 Plateaus is falling apart. All these are falling apart, have traveled with me everywhere. There's this great chapter called The Nomadology. And in it, Deleuze and Guattari talk about pan-metalism. And like everything is metal. And there's a tiniest little sliver of a mention there where they talk about the salts. And it's 100% took me back to that shower, right? And noticing the relationship between the salt of my sweat and the salt of glass and that movement toward an intercorporeality. So it's a notoriously obtuse and difficult text, but one that I consistently go back to just to get bearings. Another one is Hannah Arendt's The Human Condition. There are things I talk about with Arendt in Firecraft, right? Where in some sense, I think she's starting this book with the pot that's set upon living materialities. And she has this distinction between animal laborans as works upon the world and homo faber as like the crafts person who creates enduring objects through which we all can retrieve our identity and have like a world of plurality. My own mentor, Richard Sennett in The Craftsman, was a student of Arendt. And I go back to his text and her text as ways of creating a constellation of narratives about the maker and homo faber. How can I then write new stories and different stories about homo faber? I also just want to say something about the collages that you saw in the actual presentation today. I'm a collage maker. I've made collages forever. Two of my most important tools, which I keep at my desk, the Fiskars embroidery scissors and nothing less than an Elmer's glue stick. I would put both of these things in my bag with my books. I would take these with me. This is the furnace. How is she? Complete with movable door. You can open, you can take your gather if you want. I've got my pipe here and my bench. If you need to blow into your blowpipe, I have that for you. I experimented with people, but then I always write by candlelight. And then I had my candles accidentally dripped on my paper for my glory hole. And they looked just like a body, like the shape of a torso. So I cut out my wax strips and those became my people. But yeah, I just cut up paper and move it around. That's all that I do. I glue it together and I make things. I think that's all that I have.
Thanks for checking out this GEEX Shorts episode. This is just one of 10 chapters featuring the speaker's artwork, artistic practice, and direct conversations with the community. The full-length video, only publicly available for a limited time, can be found in the GEEX Talk subscriber archive, where you can also discover hours of content on even more contemporary glass artists and researchers. As a BIPOC and artist-led organization, GEEX redefines the culture of contemporary glass by canonizing artists and thinkers who have been historically marginalized in the field. If you'd like to support this effort, subscribe to GEEX and gain access to exclusive content. For more info, visit geeks.glass/support.